Welcome to Uncovered. I'm Anthony Davis. He's Ron Filipkowski. Together we are uncovering the MAGA propaganda that is not covered by the mainstream and corporate media. Ron, we have a lot to talk about today. Donald Trump is he's on a bit of a jolly holiday in the Middle East, meeting up with his favorite dictators. It's funny, isn't it? You know, when you don't get much traction with Putin because he's not answering your calls, or Xi Jinping not returning your calls, go find some other dictators and autocrats in other parts of the world to go and do deals with and, you know, expose your corruption. Should we start with this aeroplane?
Yeah. I mean, along the lines of that, if he had taken his first foreign trip to Europe, he would not have been well received. If he took it to Asia, he would not have been well received. I mean, this is Africa, the same thing, but of course he wouldn't go there. This is literally the only region in the world where Trump is popular with the governments.
Yes.
Are these Middle Eastern regimes. And what I've documented over the last couple of years is how many business deals he has with these governments, whether it's Qatar, whether it's Saudi Arabia, whether it's Oman. Him and his sons have so many, you know, the plane is just the latest. And I've been a little frustrated over the last couple of years that so many of these stories have been ignored by the media, that I've every time they open up a new hotel or they announce some new deal over there, I try and highlight it and talk about it. But for the most part, media doesn't seem especially interested, although this plane has captured everybody's attention. So what I've been trying to do is kind of use the publicity and the interest over the plane story to point out, well, this is just the tip of the iceberg. This guy's they're investing in his crypto, you know, they're putting hundreds of millions into that. They literally have bought and sold this guy.
Right.
And what they're focused, the media, mainstream media is focusing on the deals that he you know, they're pledging, of course, we're going to buy Boeing jets, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, instead of focusing on the fact of all the money that they're funneling directly towards him and his business enterprises.
It's deception, isn't it? Because you make an announcement over here, meanwhile something else is happening down here. And I mean, this kind of Qatar Airlines deal, you know, buying $160 billion worth of Boeing aircraft has just been announced. That deal's been in the planning for years. You know, it's not something that Trump just came up with. He heard that they were going to sign this deal and just decided to go fly right into the middle of it so he could take credit for it. But these things take forever. And, you know, half the planes are 787 Dreamliners and half the planes are 777Xs, which Boeing hasn't even successfully sold a single one of those commercially yet because it's been a disaster. It's the new 777 with the folding wingtips. It's currently as a venture, it's a bit of a failure, and so it might never even happen. And yet he's trying to take all the credit for it.
You know, I hope that Democrats are watching at least some of the things that he does and taking some lessons as far as political marketing strategy goes, because, you know, if you follow, many Democrats might not follow closely the Trump White House propaganda, but I do. And, you know, literally every company that announces a new plant or announces that they're hiring more workers, like McDonald's this week, or, you know, whatever, we're going to open these things may have been planned for a decade. These things have nothing to do with Trump or nothing to do with the U.S. government. But, you know, if they open a new McDonald's on a corner of Dearborn, Michigan, the Trump administration is putting out a press release saying, you know, and they're calling it the Trump effect. This is what the Trump effect, McDonald's hiring 10,000 new workers. You know, they are literally taking credit for everything the business community does, which has nothing to do with government or Trump. But so we go from like the Biden administration that literally never took credit for anything.
That's right. I mean, tight-lipped on deportations, even though it was more than Trump has managed.
I mean, and when I talked to their policy director during the administration, she said, he's so frustrated. Biden is so personally frustrated by the fact that he's not getting credit for all of these infrastructure projects. And I'm like, well, he hasn't been to any of them.
Right.
He's got to go out and gin up publicity, but
he needs to cut some ribbons, doesn't he? That's what he needs to do.
Or his surrogates need to do that, but none of them ever did. So on the one hand, you got Biden, who literally never took credit for anything that he actually specifically did in whether it's chips and science or infrastructure. And on the other end of the spectrum, you got Trump taking credit for everything that happens in America.
That has nothing to do with
absolutely crazy. I hope Democrats at least learn from this and learn to start taking credit for their achievements a little bit more, instead of just, okay, now we've passed that, let's focus on the next bill. No, you need to kind of stop and let people know what you've just done for them.
A little propaganda goes a long way, especially if it's true. The other thing that Trump is doing is, I've noticed recently, is he's kind of barefaced lying about prices dropping.
Yeah.
So he's kind of using it as an excuse. He's saying, look, gas is down, groceries are down, even though no one ever uses the word groceries. And he's literally lying specifically about things that he hopes no one is going to check. And now that he's realized that as president, you can kind of say anything and people are going to believe you because you're the president, he doesn't need to have anybody try to negotiate grocery prices. I mean, how would he even do that, right, without kind of price fixing? He doesn't even have that ability or know-how. And yet his solution is to go, well, I'm just going to say that they're down, and the great unwashed will believe that it's true.
Yeah, and he certainly wouldn't know any difference. Look, there's very little the government can do to affect individual consumer prices of goods across a wide spectrum of products. I mean, there's something like tariffs obviously directly impact the prices. But there's the idea that he deserves credit for any price that goes up or down is crazy. I mean, it was something I complained about when Biden was president, the fact that they blamed him for things that he had no control over, whether it was supply chain or gas prices or whatever. But the opposite is true. Trump is claiming credit for everything, lying about everything. I do believe, at least when it comes to grocery prices, though, that's something that the American people hear that and go, this guy's nuts. What is he talking about?
I hope so. But
I think a lot of them,
the
not
base
the
don't do
cultists,
that.
but I think a lot of average Americans hear him say ridiculous things like gas is $1.80 a gallon now.
Yeah.
And no American is paying that. And they're like, what is he talking about? Like that, those are the lies that the average American goes, man, that's
But
nuts.
there are some Trump supporters who are now running with the propaganda that things are going to have to be expensive for a while. And that, we're all doing our patriotic duty by paying more because it's all going to work out, which is Trump's kind of argument. But he don't care because he'll be gone by then. And so the short-term enrichment of the Trump family is really what we need to focus on, because he's never really cared for the people that supported him. He hates those people. He thinks they stink and they're just they're not his type. And so hopefully they will start to realize that this person they've put on a pedestal for the last decade is actually a scam artist, a con man, and has pulled the wool over their eyes.
Well, and I think, this palace in the sky, as I constantly call it, because that's what the Qataris called it.
Yes.
And any Democrat who refers to this as Air Force One or a luxury jet is committing political malpractice and needs to be bludgeoned with a blunt object to learn how to do politics.
Yeah.
And, if this was Obama accepting this,
right?
I mean, Republicans would be going crazy. They would never stop talking about it. And so my concern is that this is going to be the usual thing with Democrats of, hey, we'll bitch about it for a week and then we'll move on. And it's like, no, you need, every time this man gets in this plane and every time he gets out of it, you need to use the term palace in the sky. It's an Arabian palace in the sky. It's a Qatari. It is not American. It's not Air Force One. It is a Qatari palace in the sky. Repeat it over and over and over again.
Yeah.
This is what Republicans do, and they do well. And Democrats need to start learning from this kind of stuff.
And this is where
because this jet is obscene, and any video we can get from inside, because we're going to get it.
Oh, yeah.
Because you know why? Because Trump influencers are going to go inside this plane as guests of Trump, and they're going to film the hell out of it with their phones, and they're going to put it on social media.
Yeah.
And we need to blow that up. I certainly intend to do it to show how ridiculous and obscene this is. That what Trump is saying is, and what Republicans on Fox are saying almost daily now, is that Air Force One is not good enough for Trump.
Right.
It's not nice enough.
Yes.
It's not luxurious enough.
Well, he said that outright. But let's be clear, because I just want to give people the history of how we got into this situation, right? So Air Force One is an old 747 100 or 200 series, right? They're onto the Dash 8 now. So it's an old plane, but it meets military specification. Boeing build it with the U.S. military to the Air Force One. It's basically the White House in the sky. This Qatari jet, it belongs to the Qatari royal family. It might be opulent, right? It might be the latest version of the 747, but it is not built to military specification.
Correct.
And so it's currently, in the field. I'm not sure where they do it, Arizona or somewhere, doing the conversion. But, it could take as long to convert that plane to be U.S. military standard for Trump to fly as Air Force One as the two Russian 747s that he bought half price because the Russian airline went bust when he was president last time. And those were the ones that he decided, pay cheap, pay twice. We'll save money on the cost of buying two 747s from Boeing. These two kind of Russian ones are left over. It's so ironic that they were Russian airliners that got mothballed. And Boeing are currently in the middle of the contract trying to convert those civilian passenger jets into military-grade Air Force One planes. It is overly expensive. It costs more than building from scratch, and it is delayed by years. And Trump cannot wait for them. He is so desperate to feel as opulent because he's helped with the interior design, and he wants it to be like Putin's palace. And so this is a kind of short-term thing. And I was thinking, do you think the Qatari intelligence services identified how desperate Trump was for these new planes? Because, of course, he has the model of the 747-8 in front of him in the Oval Office with all meetings with dignitaries. He loves it. He even had a cake the other day that was in the same shape as that thing. And so maybe the intelligence services were like, okay, Qataris, if you want to get to Trump, offer him a plane to that spec, and you can have him. He'll do anything for you. Literally,
they took it even one step further. What they did is they flew it to West Palm Beach and showed it to him. And this was, I'm not sure the exact date, but it was months ago. It was after he won the election, but I think it was even before he took office that they flew it over there and they showed it. He got a tour of it. And they brought him, and him. As soon as he got inside and saw that thing, which is an opulent palace in the sky with gold, and they had it gold, everything's gold.
Oh yeah.
They knew that once he put his eyes on the inside of that plane,
right,
he wanted it, and he would do anything to have it. And so the question is, what is he doing? Well, we know he just announced a massive new arms package for Qatar, right? Military hardware. We know that he just lifted sanctions on Syria, which we have had sanctions on Syria since 1979, 40 years. They just got lifted yesterday. Okay. So seem to be getting a whole lot, not from Trump, from the United States of America.
Right.
And when they're giving Trump this jet, and you know what else happened? They had him tour. I watched this video today and I watched his face. They had him tour the Qatari Royal Palace
Oh,
And,
he
this
loves
thing blows away. It's like the
right.
Taj Mahal. It blows away the White House. The
Yeah.
White House is nothing
Meanwhile,
special.
Trump is having these freezes sprayed from Home Depot in gold spray
Right.
and glued to the fireplace just to make him feel like he's, he's
the
like,
White
yeah,
House,
we've done it up
it's
in
really
here.
not anything that special. It's a very
Right.
old house. It's not that big as far as like a
But it's not
head of
supposed
state.
to be a palace.
We're not supposed to be like that.
Right.
Correct.
Right.
The Europeans do that kind of stuff from centuries ago. They have the big palaces.
Well, they haven't got a choice in Europe. Those are the palaces they've got to deal with. Yeah.
Our whole ethic, our whole culture is to reject that in our political leaders.
Not anymore.
They're supposed to live humbly and all this. But of course, Trump is the antithesis of that. So I was watching his eyes today as he's giving this. And this, you should see this thing. You got to see the video. This place is unbelievable.
Yeah.
And so I'm watching his face and I'm just saying, he's thinking about a new White House. I could see it in his eyes. I predict we are going to hear from him in the next few weeks, start talking about tearing down the White House and building a new one. I predict that.
Didn't he say the other day that, or it was announced that they're going to build a ballroom so that he can have events?
He wants his Mar-a-Lago ballroom.
He wants his Mar-a-Lago ballroom.
But now, I don't think now that he saw that palace today, he's not settling for a ballroom anymore. He's going to start floating the idea that the White House is very old and antiquated and it's small and it just isn't good enough anymore. And we need to tear it down and build a new one. I absolutely think he's going to do that because of what he just saw in the Middle East. That's what he wants.
Why does he have to be the president? He doesn't even like being the president. He just wants to be a dignitary or a business associate.
He wants to be King Charles, basically.
Right. He wants to be King Charles.
He
wants to be king in a country that has no monarchy, so he's creating one.
Yeah, he wants to wear uniforms and do ceremonies and have people salute him and call him sir and king. And, that's basically the deal that he wants.
He's the last person that should have ever auditioned for the role of president. I mean, his not just his mental health, his personality disorder, everything that's wrong with Trump is exactly the type of person you do not want being president. You can handle a little bit of it, but he lives for this. He doesn't actually live for anything else. It's just the trappings.
The interesting thing is he's convinced his followers, many of whom are blue collar working class people, that this is probably a good thing. We probably need to have our president be more like a king or an emperor or a ruler. Yeah. And he's convinced them, but that they're sheep. They whatever he wants and says they follow.
And the polling says they're still with him.
Is the Republicans on Capitol Hill, the Republicans in Congress, because that they all hate this. You just know it. You can see it. But they're defending it. They're having to defend it. Many of them. I would say from what I've seen, it's been about 60-40, where about 60% of them going on TV, doing interviews and stuff are half-assed defending him. You can even tell they're uncomfortable doing it, but they're, this is what he wants and he's the president and, it's really coming to the United States, not him. And, these lame excuses. But then you got there's a significant chunk of Republicans that are saying no, this is not right. This is wrong. And it seems to me if I'm not mistaken, Congress has to approve this. So we need to have a vote in Congress on this palace in the sky. Make them all vote on it.
My prediction is he'll never get this palace in the skies. He'll end up just accepting it as a non-military aircraft, right? And just flying it for fun on unofficial events, maybe, because you just can't. The wait is going to be longer because it's another 2 years out until the two planes that are on order are ready. They were supposed to be ready about 2 years ago. But by the time they convert,
see, that bothers him because those things are coming online when a new
That's right.
another president's about. So that's another thing that bothers him.
Yeah, he doesn't
Why
want
should the next president get the new plane?
President Marco Rubio. He doesn't want him flying in it. He wants it for himself. Let's look at this clip of Trump talking about the way that the way that he kind of views how the UAE does things when it comes to the quality of your aircraft. I mean, this is very phallic, isn't it? All of this. The whole thing is very phallic. Let's take a look.
Let me do that. And they had a plane, not a new plane at all, but they had a plane. And, these planes, the plane that you're in right now is almost 40 years old. And when you land and you see Saudi Arabia and you see UAE and you see Qatar and you see all these, and they have these brand new Boeing 747s mostly, and you see ours next to it. This is like a totally different plane. It's much smaller. It's much less impressive, as impressive as it is. And, we're the United States of America. I believe that we should have the most impressive plane. So anyway, so they said to me, we would like to, in effect, we would like to make a gift. You've done so many things. And we'd like to make a gift to the Defense Department, which is where it's going. And I said, well, that's nice. Now, some people say, oh, you shouldn't accept gifts for the country. My attitude is, why wouldn't I accept a gift? We're giving to everybody else. Why wouldn't I accept a gift? Because it's going to be a couple of years, I think, before the Boeings are finished. And they'll be wonderful when they're finished, but that's a long time.
Part of your argument how the United States...
Yeah, and that was Sean Hannity that he'd taken on the plane purely to make this point. I mean, he wanted to really close this deal down with the American public. So he gets his boyfriend Hannity to kind of come and go like, yeah, this is a 40-year-old plane. Never mind the fact that for aviation enthusiasts, that old 747 is a classic, right? Actually seeing it fly in those presidential colors with its old style engines and everything, I don't think you can beat it. I'll take that any day over these new things.
The other interesting thing is that there was no press wire services on this trip on the plane. They had to go, separately. But I think it's the first time a president. It's the first time in something like 40 years that a president has taken an international trip without a single wire service, meaning like AP, Reuters, not one on the plane. He took media, but it was all right-wing media. It's all Fox, Newsmax, OAN. Right. That's who's on the plane on his first international trip. No wire services. So, but yeah, you hear you pick up some things. As with all things Trump, you could go back and watch a clip, and it's like you have to mine these little things that he inserts in there, and they tell you a lot. So obviously, what's bothering him is seeing all these other planes, and he said, the United States president should have the best plane. No, it's actually the ethic and the ethos of the United States is the exact opposite, that our leaders should live humbly, should not be wealthy, should not have ostentatious displays of wealth. That is against what America has always been about for our political leaders. Now, if a American businessman wants to do that, Howard Hughes or somebody like that, or Steve Jobs, that's fine. But not our politicians, not our political leaders. They are not supposed to live like this. And so, but it bothers him, his ego, that they have a bigger plane than me, and, you mentioned talking about how long it's going to take to get the new one. I believe it grates on him to think that when this beautiful new Air Force One comes online, he will not get to be on it for very long and somebody else will. And I think that bothers him. So, yeah, there's just so much about this that just
What about the national security implications of accepting a Qatari plane, right? That could
and by
potentially...
the way, this isn't going to the Department of Defense.
No.
He's keeping the plane when he leaves office.
Exactly. So you could, because he's so easy, because he's such a terrible liar, so it's so easy to go to read him when he's saying it's a gift to the Defense Department. It's just simply not true.
Okay, do they get to keep it then when he leaves? No, they don't.
No, they don't. And so, is it bugged?
But yeah, you got to go through every inch of this plane. I read something like, I'm not an airplane guy, but I read something like there's like 200 miles of wire in this thing, or 2,000 miles or something. And they have to go through every bit of it.
Does it have an autopilot override that is remotely controlled by Qatar?
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean? There are so many some great film scripts in this. I hope that movie producers are listening to this, because we call this Air Force Qatar, this movie with Harrison Ford. But I reckon that his ego, but also his hunger for this opulence, overrides any critical thinking about national security or whether this could be heading. This shows how dumb he is when it comes to being manipulated by foreign adversaries. Because, the Qataris, they're not good people. Their human rights atrocities are so terrible. No different to Mohammed bin Salman in Saudi Arabia. Again, the human rights atrocities are so bad he shouldn't even be in the same room. The guy ordered the murder of Jamal Khashoggi, an American journalist for the Washington Post, as confirmed by the world and American security services. And yet Trump is loving these guys, rubbing shoulders with these guys. Didn't he say of the Qataris, oh, we're just so similar? I mean, he is on another planet.
And he wasn't saying that a few years ago. No. Not to mention the human rights violations and everything else. Look, I don't have any problem with trying to improve relations with Arab countries in the Middle East. I think that that's all well and good. But I mean, literally, he is making them our only allies in the world. And their populations are very small. They don't have huge militaries. They have tons of money from oil and from financial services now from investing that oil. They hold lots of our debt. And but why are they now becoming our most important ally? Because their value system is closer to Donald Trump's than Europe's or any.
Well, they're rich, and he knows that they love to do deals, and that's who he communicates with. That's who he respects, and he also is always feathering his nest for the time when he isn't president, because he doesn't want to be the president. Obviously, as we've keep discussing, it's exhausting to him. All this responsibility, it's so funny, isn't it? Caroline Leavitt keeps getting up in the press room saying he gave up a very luxurious lifestyle and, he could have had anything, and yet he came to give a life of public service. And I'm just like, oh my goodness.
It's absurd. I mean,
it's absurd.
He literally is making more on the side personally off being president. Every single day he makes more money than his annual salary as president.
Yeah.
So when they say, oh, he doesn't keep his annual salary, I mean, that's a joke. I mean, he's made billions of dollars just on his crypto scam. Right. Like I saw something like $2.3 billion his crypto holdings are worth right now. And that's just, he put not one penny into that. That's just, I'll agree to let you use my name on this crypto deal. And I just made $2 billion because he's president. If he was Joe Blow, Donald Trump, if he wasn't president, if he lost the election, none of this would be happening. If Donald Trump lost that election, would foreign entities be putting hundreds of millions of dollars into his crypto? Absolutely not. Or Trump media stock? Absolutely not. And so, the bottom line is he's making all of this money off the presidency and off being a former president before this.
Now, I'm going to say something that is controversial, and I'm not trying to be controversial, but I just tell you how I feel. The more we are exposed to Trump's corruption since he won this presidency, the more we see how the mindset is for hypocrisy and just the way that the rule of law, everything from, immigration, habeas corpus, everything, the way that they are kind of steamrolling over all of the things that America holds dear, just makes me think more and more that there's no way that he didn't go out of his way to win that election through unscrupulous means. Do you know what I mean? Like, I just don't buy it. I just don't buy it. And now that he's behaving in this way, it just makes me feel like a mug for buying into the fact that, oh yeah, people will love him, and I just don't buy it. We see who he is. He wouldn't bat an eyelid or think twice about doing anything and everything he could to guarantee that election was won for him.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, that I'm sure that he would want to do that. Whether whatever he did or didn't do, I don't know.
No, I don't know what he did. I'm not saying he
Yeah.
did anything specific, but I'm just saying that the road that we're on now, if that started in November or pre-November, which of course it did, we can see the type of operation, the type of people he surrounds himself with, and the type of, the level and the lengths they will go to get their own way.
Yeah. Well, on a different subject, I think that Democrats absolutely must use this grift that Republicans are enabling and allowing in the midterm. They have to use this issue. They did not use the Trump grift and corruption at all during the presidential campaign. All the stuff, the shoes, the crypt, they were frightened. The NFT deals.
They were frightened.
This was not used during the campaign at all against Trump. And if Democrats don't use things like the crypto and the against Republicans, because look, if Republicans on Capitol Hill pushed back on any of this or held oversight hearings or anything, a lot of this wouldn't be happening. It's only being allowed to happen because they are not doing anything to oppose it or to stop it. That is what Democrats running against these people in 2026 need to talk about. The fact that this is only happening because of your acquiescence and your refusal to do any oversight whatsoever. Their whole attitude is, he's the president, he gets to do whatever he wants.
Let him blow it up. But
let him, it's like they don't exist, whether it's tariffs or anything else. They're just giving him a blank check and let him do whatever he wants. And meanwhile, how many bills has Congress passed this year? How many total bills? Do you know what the number is?
Is it around zero?
It's 5. It's 5.
Oh, 5. Okay.
Which is lower than any Congress in the last 40 years at this point in a term. They are literally a do-nothing Congress. And then when this big, beautiful bill finally comes out, it's going to be a total disaster if Republicans can ever finally agree on everything, because there's so much they're fighting over.
Can I say something in defense of the Democrats for a moment? And that is that, they don't have much power in Congress. The old back channels and the way it used to go, the kind of cross-party diplomacy and all that stuff. It's ancient history now. It's a cult. It's a coup. The government's effectively been taken over by a kind of criminal enterprise. They really do have their hands tied behind their backs. That's the first thing I'd say. But the second thing is about coverage. The media now is basically controlled by Trump. So many of these media executives at senior levels have capitulated to the regime. So even if they are doing anything to speak up and shout out against this movement, it's not getting the carriage and the coverage that it would have got in previous years. And I'll give, Senator Chris Murphy as an example, gave a speech a night or so ago in the Senate, spoke about the corruption, spoke about the planes. It was, it hardly got the coverage because of ownership. And I'm including CNN and these types of networks. They're just not doing it. And let alone the Washington Post and, the New York Times, things have changed. The landscape has changed. And this is what authoritarianism is. And it's no different in Saudi Arabia, You think there's journalists speaking freely or news networks that are allowed to report the truth? Everything is controlled and silenced and threatened. Yeah. And that is the landscape that we have now. And so I actually posted Chris Murphy's speech on the 5 Minute News last night. And people writing to me saying, thank you for posting this. I didn't see it anywhere.
Yeah, well, what I pay attention to when it comes to media coverage is not so much the cable news channels like MSNBC, CNN, Fox, like that. That reaches a small segment of the American population that is already in a particular camp and has already made up their mind about most things. So they're not persuading anybody. Right. It is the mainstream legacy out, the ABC, the CBS, the Good Morning Americas, the Today shows, the cooking shows, the talk shows like The View and those kind of things. Like those are the things that really can move the needle somewhat with the, the non-political junkie American public. and their coverage of this administration has been absolutely horrible, whether it's on tariffs or anything else. Because I pay attention to them, and it's all like wishy-washy. You know, they don't ever say that he lies. They don't ever say he's corrupt. They don't ever say that he surrenders on trade deals. It's always like, well, we just reached a trade deal with China. No, we didn't. We didn't reach a trade deal with China. Trump just took the tariffs from 145 down to 30 and got nothing in return. Right. How is that a deal? You know, but they don't cover it that way. They take what the administration's spin is and they run with it, and then they'll take the Democrats.
Is it not intentional? I mean,
side, and then they'll put that out. And
right, but are you accusing them of being naive or uneducated or inexperienced, or are you accusing them of capitulating to the regime? Or is it a bit of both?
Yeah, a bit of both. But I want to go back to the Middle East, by the way, because
we need to talk about Syria.
I do want to talk about Syria, because to me this is like a very interesting situation, right? So we know Assad, who was toppled from power, who Tulsi Gabbard, his DNI, was in love with and backed him, and so, but the new president, Ahmed al-Shara, he was an Al-Qaeda fighter in Iraq. He actually fought against U.S. service. So, but what he has, the question is he still that person? Because he is putting himself out there as like a changed man. And I'm going to say, I'm not saying this cynically. I think he very well may be, and he may very well want to modernize he's renounced terrorism. He wants to demilitarize Syria. He wants to make it more of a Western country. And obviously it's got a long ways to go and still a lot of problems, but he's saying the right things. And so what they're saying is, look, we've had these crushing sanctions on us led by the United States since 1979. We can never get out of this hole that we're in of being this backwards country. We used to be, Syria used to be, Damascus used to be a thriving, very, it was a French colony, it used to be the center of culture in the Middle East decades ago. And now it's gone down this road. And so what he's saying is we want to go back to what we used to be. But here's the thing, he had to get sanctions lifted. So the intelligence community and the establishment in Washington was against this, or very much in terms of in a wait and see mode. Look, this guy just took power. He's been in power for a year. Let's see how this goes. Let's see if he really implements the reforms, right? But he decided to go to a backdoor channel. There was a guy named Jonathan Bass, who is a Trump influencer supporter, who became friends with this guy and pitched to him like, I can get to Trump and I can help you get this done. So he's trying to set up a meeting with Trump during this Middle East trip, but Trump's itinerary was pretty booked. He's visiting 3 different countries, one of which is not Syria. He's also got the Ukraine-Russia talks, which are supposed to happen tomorrow in Turkey. So plate is pretty full, right? There was nothing about Syria on this agenda. But this guy, Jonathan Bass and al-Shara, dangled in front of Trump a Trump Tower Damascus.
That's right.
We will build a Trump Tower in Damascus.
Yes.
And, next thing you know, so I heard that was reported on 3 days ago, that this story was reported on, that they have offered to build and this is for Trump org. This is for his business. This is not for Trump, the president. So they pitched this to him. And then next thing you know, out of the blue, in the middle of his speech yesterday, talking about other things, he announces he's lifting all sanctions on Syria. And everybody was floored. Even the Middle Eastern people who were there, the government officials, were like pretty surprised. Obviously, our State Department didn't know about it. Our intelligence community didn't know about it. This is just something that he announced out of the blue. He's like, I met with this guy. He flew in and I talked to him and I looked him in the eyes and I believe him. Now, the last thing I'll say on this, I know I'm talking for a long time here, but the last thing I'll say on this is this. This very well might be the right move. This is either going to be a spectacular disaster or a spectacular success. But it's literally a coin toss. This is taking a hell of a gamble by us lifting sanctions. And the bottom line is we are not doing it because of our intelligence assessments on the ground in country. We're doing it based on a hope and a prayer that this guy is legit and he's going to do what he says he's going to do. But the real question is, why is Trump doing it? What is his motivation? What is he personally getting out of this? Does he really care about Syria and Middle East peace and stability? Or is he getting something in return? That's number one. And I'll note number two, footnote number two is Israel is pissed off about this. And this is a long series, adds to the list of a series of things he has done in the last few weeks that has really made Netanyahu and Israel mad. So that relationship has obviously gone sour.
So I have a couple of thoughts on this. Firstly, that I think lifting sanctions on Syria softens the blow when he lifts sanctions on Russia. And that's coming, right?
Yeah.
So
You're probably right.
That's coming down the pike. And I'm telling you, he's not just going to lift some sanctions, because last week he was threatening more sanctions on Russia because he had to kind of look like a strong man for 5 minutes. But I reckon he's going to lift all sanctions on Russia, and that's coming. That's coming. That's just a prediction for a few months away. But we have to think about what you were saying about whether or not this new Syrian president is legitimate or not, or whether he's like that Sacha Baron Cohen movie, The Dictator, which I recommend people watch just to kind of see about, because it plays on a lot of the culture. You know, Bashar al-Assad was a terrible person and is now effectively banished. I think he's in Russia now, isn't he? He found a hideout with Vladimir Putin. So that kind of gives us a little insight as to whose side people are on. Al-Sharaa, the new guy, his name previously was Abu Muhammad al-Golani, and he was the leader of the Al-Nusra Front, which is an al-Qaeda affiliate in Syria.
Right.
And under his leadership, the group was implicated in numerous human rights violations, massacres targeting minority communities. He orchestrated suicide bombings in civilian areas, the Al-Midan bombing, 2013 Damascus bombing. He forced conversions and ethnic cleansing, coercing minority groups to convert and forcibly displacing communities based on sectarian lines. This is who this guy is. So the Americans, I'm sure the security services...
We're taking his word that he's a changed man.
Yeah, I'm a changed man. You know,
he says he's renounced all that now.
All that ethnic cleansing that I did.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. Donald Trump now is the ethnic cleanser. Donald Trump is drawn to all of these horrific characteristics. That is what he is doing now in the US, disappearing people off the streets, separating mothers from their children in front of the neighbors. It's horrific, and yet welcoming the white Afrikaans in as refugees and giving them US flags to hold and saying welcome to the free world. I mean, he has completely turned this country on its head, and so Sharaa, I'm sure the security services of European nations and elsewhere, and I'm sure the US intelligence as well, are saying, bad man, no good, don't do this.
There's a lot of them that are saying that.
Because remember in Helsinki, Trump's response was, well, who am I supposed to believe, the US security services or Vladimir Putin, who told me he didn't interfere with the election? Trump will always side with
Tulsi
the
Gabbard
enemy.
hates this guy.
His
own director of national intelligence. So.
Yeah.
She apparently was not informed about this announcement either. So
this is how dangerous and lawless America has become under Trump. This is how easy it is to curry favor with him. Even the fact that he still has DJT Media on the stock exchange is bad enough, and no one's even mentioned that. Mm-hmm. So, I think we have to come to terms with the fact that the old America, under sleepy Joe Biden and everybody who went before him, is over. Even Trump's first 4 years, that day is over. We don't have James Mattis. We don't have John Kelly. We don't have Rex Tillerson, people who were just rooted in reality.
Yeah, we have never had the type of administration that we have right now, including Trump 1. Nothing like it was. Trump 1 is nothing like
this. And so we got to stop being shocked and surprised and just accept that the US has fallen to an authoritarian autocracy, and this is the landscape now.
Yeah, and we just have to be aware of vigilant, aware of everything that's happening.
Yeah.
Smoke out all the corruption.
Yeah.
Fight every place that we can, and just keep our eyes open. Win every race we can win.
Right.
And not shoot ourselves in the foot and make mistakes.
Exactly.
I mean, think about this. And I know we're going to talk about the Jake Tapper book, but the fact that the whole news cycle of CNN and mainstream media this week is about Joe Biden in 2023, when all of this other shit is going on that they're not covering, like about the Syria thing.
More like the fall of America.
Just infuriating. I tell you what, I mean, I get so upset, when they go off on these dumb tangents because what makes me more upset is just knowing what I know about all the other stuff that's happening.
Well, just even the big picture.
Ignore. Yeah. Ignore.
They focus in on this kind of micro view of something irrelevant, when the bigger picture is that there's this con man who's basically now doing deals with our worst enemies.
Yeah.
Let me play the clip.
Day after day, the lead story on CNN is Joe Biden's whether he was going to need a wheelchair in his second term or not. Like, what are we doing? What are we doing here? What are you doing?
Because the media is compromised.
And it's not just CNN. No. Because, you just watch all the other networks. Like, they're all promoting this Biden story. Yeah. And all these reporters for all these other networks and media outlets, because it's so incestuous. It's never been more illustrated to me more vividly than about how incestuous legacy DC media is, and how they all promote each other and make each other rich, than over this Tapper book. Yeah. Tapper Thompson teaming up with the Axios guy, because I'm watching all of these reporters, not just from CNN and Axios, but NBC, all promoting this book and pumping it up. And it's like, because they know that they want these guys to do it when they put out their books. And it's just gross. And it is why independent media is growing so quickly, because that's not what we're all about. Like, we want to dig up the stories and make people aware of them. We're not looking to do book tours. We're not looking to go on the cocktail party circuit. We turn those invitations down. I do regularly.
I don't even get invited. This is the reality, Ron, is that we can continue to be incensed at the way it's going, but we also have to draw a line and go, okay, this is what it is like in other countries that have been living under authoritarianism for years. And this is what it is like. The media is not there anymore. And that's what you just described is exactly what it's like in Hungary, what you described. Mm-hmm. But I don't think they're screaming about it anymore. They've just realized that that's Viktor Orban for you. And, all these conversations that Orban was having with Trump before the election, what do you think they were talking about? He was telling him, well, you get control of the media, you silence these people, you do this, you do that, you'll never have any criticism ever again. This is where we're at now. Let me show this clip of Trump ordering the cessation of sanctions against Syria. I mean, I can't even believe this is a real thing, but here it is.
Yeah, they've had their share of travesty, war, killing, many years. That's why my administration has already taken the first steps toward restoring normal relations between the United States and Syria for the first time in more than a decade. And I'm very pleased to announce that Secretary Marco Rubio will be meeting with the new Syrian foreign minister in Turkey later this week. And very importantly, after discussing the situation in Syria with the Crown Prince, your Crown Prince, and also with President Erdogan of Turkey, who called me the other day and asked for a very similar thing, among others, and friends of mine, people that I have a lot of respect for in the Middle East. I will be ordering the cessation of sanctions against Syria in order to give them a chance at greatness.
Oh, what I do for the Crown Prince.
And there it is. There it is. Oh,
And
what I do for the Crown Prince. Oh, what I
the
do
Crown
for
Prince has
Erdogan.
done for him.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he's paying back
Payback.
for what he's been. Look, he has the Crown Prince has given Jared Kushner, I think we're up to like $3.5 billion.
Yeah.
He's invested in Trump golf resorts in Oman and all over the middle in Riyadh. They're building a Trump Tower, Riyadh.
Yeah.
So, yep. I mean, Trump has done nothing for the Crown Prince. The United States is doing things for him, and Trump is getting the benefits, not the United States. So, yep, it's gross. These are our friends now. I mean, we have no friends anywhere else in the world. Everybody hates us, but they love us. They love us in Saudi Arabia.
But notice Trump, how he felt at the end there. Like you could hear him taking that intake of breath because he was so blown away at the response because he wants a response like that in America and he can't get it. He does a State of the Union, half the room stand up and clap. Everyone else is on sitting down. Like he hates it. But this electrifies him. This is everything that the malignant narcissist needs. This is the oxygen, right?
He's not going to get that from a foreign audience anywhere else in the world.
But the problem, Ron, is that feeling that he just got there, he's going to want to get that in Russia. He's going to want to get that in Iran. He's going to want to get that in places where he can lift sanctions, make announcements, and be adored. He doesn't care who it is, how atrocious their record on rights, human rights, and law breaking.
Oh, that's all irrelevant.
Irrelevant.
Yeah,
I was just thinking during that clip, how
they don't care about that, and he doesn't care about that. That's what they have in common.
Do things like the stolen documents case seem now? Right? Like that whole thing where at the time, because this shit hadn't happened yet, the theft of the documents and putting them in Mar-a-Lago was massive. Felt massive in terms of corruption, compromising national security. And here we are now seeing Trump on the world stage being given a standing ovation by the Middle Easterns for lifting sanctions on Syria. Are you kidding me? This is how far we've come.
That's where we're at. That's where we're at. Yep. It's
As
crazy.
we say in England, shit the bed.
Yeah.
Okay, we've got to take a quick break, but and we need it. We're gonna have a stiff one.
And we have so many other things to get to.
We've got
so much time in the Middle East, but
no, it's important.
I mean, it's important.
Yeah.
So.
All right. We'll be back with more on this here on Uncovered next. As we head into summer, 1 minute you're sweating through your shirt, the next minute you're wishing you brought that jacket. And especially if you're out and about getting things done in the yard, generally spending more time outside. Fortunately, Mack Weldon has everything you need to stay cool, comfortable, and stylish regardless of the temperature. Their new Tech Linen line combines the easy charm of classic linen with Coolmax technology to help you look and feel your best all season long. Explore polos, sweaters, hoodies and more at MackWeldon.com and get 25% off your first order with code UNCOVERED. Looking confident doesn't have to mean calling attention to your clothes. Mack Weldon balances classic pieces with updated details to keep you looking sharp. They're not flashy, just classic, always in style and made from the world's most comfortable performance fabrics. Breathable underwear that keeps you cool and dry all day long. Clothes that look regular, but feel like the latest in modern comfort. Give your closet a breath of fresh air for spring. Go to MackWeldon.com and get 25% off your first order of $125 or more with promo code UNCOVERED. That's MackWeldon.com, and promo code is UNCOVERED. Feeling your best starts with the right products, and for me that means Via. And we're proud to have them as a sponsor of this episode. If you haven't tried them yet, you're seriously missing out. Whether you need to unwind, refocus, or boost your mind, Via is here to enhance your everyday and night. Trusted by over 500,000 happy customers, Via is changing the game in natural wellness, blending powerful, high-quality hemp-derived ingredients to deliver real, effect-driven benefits. Whether you're looking to sleep better, have a better libido, improve focus, recover, or simply relax, Via has a tailored solution just for you. From their award-winning Forward Effect gummies to calming drops, every Via product is thoughtfully crafted, made with organic, lab-tested hemp, sourced from trusted, independent, American-owned farms. And the best part, Via legally ships across the USA, discreet, direct to your door, no medical card required, and backed by a worry-free guarantee. Not sure where to start? Take Via's Product Finder quiz to get personalized recommendations tailored to your needs. It can take less than 60 seconds to complete. So, if you're 21 plus, treat yourself to 15% off and get a free gift with your first order using our exclusive code UNCOVERED at viahemp.com. Plus, enjoy free shipping on orders over $100. That's viahemp.com. And after you purchase, they ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. Enhance your everyday with Via. If you've ever searched for your name or your address in Google, it's shocking to find how many results have your personal information, and it's not by chance. Data brokers and people's search sites collect your personal information, your name, address, phone number, financial information, income, and hundreds of other records. They sell and share it publicly without your consent. But Incogni is here to put an end to that. Incogni hunts down these unethical sites and gets your information removed from the places that expose your private details. You don't have to email anyone, fill out any forms, or jump through hoops. They handle the entire process for you. Incogni also continuously monitors if your data is put back onto these databases, requesting repeated removals. This way, it keeps them off forever. So you get way less spam calls, spam emails, and much more peace of mind. And best of all, you can cancel at any time, and they offer a 30-day money-back guarantee, so you can get it completely risk-free. Right now, you can get 60% off an annual plan by going to incogni.com and use code UNCOVEREDPOD. That's incogni.com/uncoveredpod and use code UNCOVEREDPOD at checkout. Welcome back, and links to our sponsors are in the description below. Ron, let's look at tariffs quickly because China has played the long game. They've said nothing. They've kept quiet. Trump's been wriggling and squiggling and squirming, and finally he's announced that, well, it's a reset now on China tariffs. This is after, I guess, the business community and the stock market have whispered in his ear, "You just cost us $1 trillion, mate."
Well, yeah, I mean, but it's still not being presented right. I mean, sure. I mean, there's no deal here, first of all.
Right.
I mean, and when Lutnick and Bessent have been asked repeatedly, name one thing that China gave up to get you to lower U.S. tariffs from 145 to 30, they say, well, China lowered their tariffs too. They only raised them in response to what you did, and then they brought them back after you brought them back. They gave up nothing. There is not a single thing, not a single sector of our economy where you could say China lowered their tariffs from what they were prior to Trump taking office. Not one product, not one economic sector, not one industry, nothing. So that's number one. So the first thing is we capitulated. We contacted them. They did not contact us. We got in touch with them. We went to meet with them and we surrendered to them, which is bad for future negotiations because China sees how weak Donald Trump is and how all they have to do is sit back and wait and let the markets and let corporate America yell and scream and holler, and Trump will be forced to his knees to surrender. But that's the first part. But the second part is all this does. I mean, before you couldn't sell anything from China here with 145%. It was essentially decoupling our economy from theirs.
Yeah.
And we did that for 30 days. That couldn't continue any longer without the U.S. economy absolutely tanking. And so they did it as long as they could. But the bottom line is there's still a 30% tariff on Chinese products. So that's still a 30% tax increase on the American public on all of those goods, along with 10% and more for everything.
And it's basically everything, because there are components inside things, even things made in America, supposedly, white goods, washing machines, they all use Chinese parts. So, of course, the cost of things like that are going to go up. So made in America is not as simple as it sounds. And as we know, Apple famously, designed in California, made by Foxconn in the Schengen region. I mean, we are a truly international kind of global society, and Trump is in denial of that. And this is the cost of putting an old school xenophobe in charge of international trade. Just completely incompatible with the way things are done. Now, we've all agreed that we would never agree with Rand Paul about anything, but strangely, he's making a whole lot of sense these days. Let's take a look.
If he succeeds in lowering tariffs and lessening the obstacles to trade, I'll be right there. I think it's unknown with China. We started out at 145%, then we went to 80%, now we're at 30%. But that's 30% more than we have on currently. So this will be a 30% rise in any goods who are coming from China, and somebody will pay that, and it will be the consumer. If the consumer's happy to pay more when they go to Walmart or more when they go to Target in order to get fairness or to teach China a lesson, then so be it. But the proof is in the pudding. We'll see what happens over the next 6 months to a year.
Why is Rand Paul speaking out? Why does he not fear Trump in the same way that 99% of other Republicans do?
That's really the big question, because he has been one of the most vocal opponents of this the plane deal,
yes.
From Qatar, on tariffs, on the big, beautiful bill, a lot of the stuff that's in the budget, the debt, the amount of new debt that the tax cuts and everything else are going to take on. And so it seems like every day Rand Paul is on Fox criticizing Donald Trump in the last few weeks. And look, I think that he is only saying what they all believe, what most of them, not your Tubervilles and stuff like that, but I'm going to say like 75% of Republicans in Congress agree with Rand Paul on tariffs, on the jet, on the deficit, but none of them will say anything. So I guess like the assholishness of Rand Paul is actually paying off here. The fact that he doesn't give a crap what anybody thinks about him, and I think that has always been a characteristic of Rand Paul. Rand Paul literally doesn't care. If everyone in America hated Rand Paul, that wouldn't bother Rand Paul a bit. So he's unique among politicians in that respect. And I think, the fact that he's from Kentucky and he's never going to lose that seat no matter what he does. So
right.
He's literally like primary proof, election proof. So I think that he feels very secure in that respect. And who knows, maybe he's actually angling to run for president again in 2028 and seeking to separate himself from the Vances and the Rubios, who are likely to be the two front runners.
Yes. Isn't he an orthodontist or something like that?
Well, an ophthalmologist, eye doctor.
Oh, he's an eye doctor, an ophthalmologist.
Yeah. Although we're going to have plenty in our audience who are going to quibble with that because there's some question about his credentialing and stuff.
Yes, because he wasn't registered for years.
In theory,
or
that was
something
his
like that. Yeah, but he likes being called doctor. I've discovered this because maybe as a quick digression, we could say that the Surgeon General that Trump nominated, he unnominated again this morning. That's the second time in a row now, I think, isn't it? And so
I didn't even see that. Are you serious?
Yeah, pulled her. Yeah,
the second one.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even see that.
Yeah, I think so. The one that doesn't have the qualifications.
The one that's not a doctor.
She's not a doctor. She was a TV doctor.
I didn't see that part. I missed that. Okay.
Yeah, no. This is the problem with controlled media. It's quietly withdrawn, right?
So we're on to our third Surgeon General now.
Yeah, they've made another announcement, but this is where we're at. We are basically dealing with morons. Talking of which, let's talk about Ukraine and the talks in Turkey and the fact that Putin apparently is going to go to Turkey to have the talks, and there's a chance that Vladimir Zelensky and Putin might be in the same room together. I can't see how that's ever going to happen without Putin like pulling a weapon on him, you know. And now Trump's hearing that he could, as you mentioned at the beginning, that maybe he'll show up too. I mean, it sounds like, I don't know, to me, it doesn't sound like it's a good thing, because these things always end in disaster. I'm just going to show the clip of Trump bragging about it, and then you can tell us what's really going on.
What happens on Thursday if President Putin doesn't show up in Turkey for the talks with Ukraine? What will you do?
Well, I don't know if he's showing up. I know he would like me to be there, and that's a possibility. If we could end the war, I'd be thinking about that. Now, tomorrow, we're all booked out. You understand that? We're all set.
But you move. He goes.
UAE tomorrow. And so we have a very full situation. Now, that doesn't mean I wouldn't do it to save a lot of lives and come back. But, yeah, I think they're thinking about something. I don't know that he would be there if I'm not there. We're going to find out. Marco's going. And Marco's been very effective.
The president has been very clear, because Putin wants a meeting with the president face to face. And the president has been very clear, then there needs to be something to sign. We need to accomplish something. And so it's a very clear formula for Putin. Show up to the meeting.
No. Did you see Trump's face when he said we can't go because we're very booked up and, you know, in Qatar and we've got the meetings? All he could think about was that plane. That's all he could think about.
Yeah, UAE is more important than ending the war in Ukraine, right?
Yeah.
So, I've been watching this very closely, paying a lot of attention to what's coming out of Moscow about this. Yeah. So, the thing is, like, Trump constantly moves the goalposts and wants you to forget about what he said last week or the week before. And I'm one of these guys who is obsessed with constantly, like, bringing back up, this is what you said then, now you're saying. I mean, maybe I'm the only one who cares about the fact documenting his lies, but I'll continue to do it. So, look, here's what Trump, this was supposed to be the first bilateral peace talks between Zelensky and Putin, face to face. They haven't been face to face ever. So the original deal that was pitched by the Trump administration was 30-day ceasefire is the precondition of these meetings in Turkey. In other words, both sides must first agree to a ceasefire for 30 days, sign that. Then, once that's done, we will have the face-to-face meetings between these two people. Trump was actually not supposed to be involved in this. What happened? Zelensky said, okay, sign the ceasefire immediately, and said, ball's in Putin's court. And Putin said, no, we're not going to do, we're not, hem and haw didn't do it. Oh no, we don't like this, we don't like that, and then Trump threatened him twice with additional sanctions. We're going to put these horrible. They're going to be so bad. We're going to make him. If he doesn't sign this ceasefire and show up to these peace negotiations, I'm going to really punish Russia.
Yeah,
said it twice in True Social posts.
Yeah.
So then, what do we know? Putin just said, no, I'm not signing it. So then what does Zelensky do? Zelensky could have said, well, if he didn't sign, he didn't agree to the terms of the ceasefire, so I'm not going. But instead, this was the master stroke by Zelensky. He called Putin's bluff and showed Trump, this guy's full of shit. Mm-hmm. Showed him quite clearly, because he said, you know what? Screw the ceasefire. I'll go anyway. I will be there. I will be in Turkey. I'm going. Regardless of whether Putin says he's going to go or Trump's going to go, I will be sitting there with Erdogan waiting for Putin to show up. And so he called his bluff. And so then Trump was like, well, you need to go. But now what's coming out? So Putin himself, again, I've been paying close attention. As of like hours ago, he still hasn't said whether he's going to go or not. But everyone around him, including Russian legislatures, his spokesman, Peskov, is saying, oh, no, he's going to send a representative. Well, a head of state does not meet with a secretary of state. No. And so Zelensky has said, I will not meet with anyone from Russia except Vladimir Putin. He needs to come. Clever. I will meet with him. Very clever. And then Zelensky played the Trump card, which is he said, you know what? Trump's already over here in the Middle East. Why doesn't he just fly over here and come too? Because what Zelensky wants is for like the two of them to be sitting there in Turkey, and where's Putin?
Yes.
This is the play that he's made. It really was a master stroke of diplomacy by Putin, because now there's no possible way that Trump or any of the Putin apologists in America can claim that he wants peace and Zelensky wants more war, and that those of us in the United States who support Ukraine are warmongers. It makes it very difficult to make that case, if not impossible, with Zelensky sitting there in Istanbul waiting for Putin and Putin not showing up.
The other thing to remember is how Putin is selling this war to the Russian people. He claims that Zelensky and the Ukrainians are Nazis.
Right.
And what he is doing is they're on a security mission, doesn't describe it as a war, to rid Ukraine of Nazis. So that is not going to play very well with him sitting down with a Nazi and agreeing a peace agreement. It is not going to look good for a strongman, right? So we have to remember how he is propagandizing this very war to his own people, because he's as insecure as Trump. He is another one of these, he's terrified, apparently, Putin, fear of being assassinated and fear of being too old and too short and all these things.
I think he's afraid of going face to face with Zelensky.
100%.
I think he's afraid of him.
100%.
Because Zelensky has way more courage and integrity and intestinal fortitude than Putin ever had.
Right.
And this was always why it was so dumb again, I'm going at this with the premise that Trump is not owned or controlled by Putin. He's just a useful idiot. Okay?
Why are you leaving that one out?
we're working off that premise, because if we don't work off that premise, then none of this is the whole discussion means nothing.
But it's non-linear, right? So the control that Putin has over Trump is non-linear, in the same way that the control that the Qataris and the Saudis have over Trump is non-linear.
But that's why it was so dumb for Trump to repeatedly say both sides want peace.
Yes.
Putin wants peace. Putin wants to stop the killing.
Yeah.
Ukraine wants to keep the war going. Yeah. When nothing illustrates that more vividly to be false than what will happen tomorrow. Because what is going to happen tomorrow? Because Trump won't show up. Trump was only going to show up if he literally thought like a peace deal could be. Yeah,
he wants the photo op.
Right. He wants to just ride in and be the hero. But if that's not in the cards, he'll go nowhere near that. And that's why he's kind of over there hedging his bets. Like, hey, if I think something's going to happen, I'll parachute in and take credit for it. But if it's going to be a disaster, I'm going to stay away. Right. That's how he operates. So, and this is going to be a disaster. It's going to be a disaster for him, his foreign policy, and for Putin's standing with the people in the United States and in the West who claim that he wants anything other than war. This proves all of them wrong.
Yeah. Putin only wants the war over because he's hemorrhaging money. It's nothing to do with, wanting peace. He wants territory and he wants to stop hemorrhaging money. He doesn't care about lives. But he can't end the war without
victory.
I know.
Because then he looks terrible to his own people.
So he'd rather just kind of even, go back to...
There's like literally no way out for him where he could save face at this point.
It's so screwed up. Trump has...
He needed Donald Trump. What he needed was Donald Trump to separate the United States from Ukraine. Yeah. Cut off intelligence, cut off military aid. That was his only shot to win this war. And now that it appears and he was close to getting that, but now that it appears that, and certainly if J.D. Vance had his way, he would have gotten that.
Yes.
But Republicans in Congress rebelled, thank God, for once, and stood up to Trump on this issue, many of them. And so it didn't happen. And public opinion polls also were horrendous for Trump over that meeting with Zelensky, where there was like something like 80% said that he behaved terribly in that meeting. And so that didn't happen. And that was Putin's only hope for winning the war. So now he's stuck.
Trump has destabilized these regions to a point that he will never comprehend. From, Yemen, all of these places, these theaters of war that were just bubbling under. Trump has taken everything to the next level. Gaza now is a disaster, as we know, humanitarian disaster. And meanwhile, Trump will continue to say no new wars under me, and yet he does not realize the carnage that he leaves behind. Let's look at this scandal of MAGA spreading Russian propaganda about Macron and Starmer and Merz. I'll show the clip and you can explain what's going on. I mean, this is rich, isn't it? Let's take a look.
It's a long walk. I'll be back in Poland.
And through my bathroom, huh?
It's literally. We came through Germany, and then we made it to France.
German bedroom and
we got through the border.
Right.
Make a photo, and after that, it will be allowed to have a drink.
Yeah.
Super.
Yeah.
On va bien.
Ok, c'est bon.
Merci. Merci.
Merci.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So MAGA claims that was a bag of white powder on the table, that Emmanuel Macron sneaks out of the shot of the photograph and then shoves it in his pocket, and then Merz hides the spoon. I mean, that's what they're claiming, right?
That Merz and Keir Starmer and Macron are all snorting cocaine on the plane, right? Yeah. Okay. So in front of the press, by the way. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, in front of each other. I mean, come on.
In front of each other, right?
Yeah.
They're all the leader of Germany, UK, and France are all snorting cocaine together with media.
Big cocaine party.
Yeah.
In the sky.
I mean, it's just amateur hour, but it got like tens of millions of views. I was watching Musk because I figured, if Musk had gotten in on the party here and blown it up like he has done in the past, this would have been even bigger. But this was like the first time ever that he didn't help spread Russian propaganda on Twitter, because I think he's gotten his wings clipped by the Tesla board, and he's been on his best behavior over the last few weeks, as close as he can. But this was put out by the Russians. It was put out through Telegram. They intentionally blurred the video to make it more difficult to see what it was. And they tried to suggest that it was a baggie of Coke and a Coke spoon.
Yeah.
And of course, their paid accomplices, the main culprit was Alex Jones, who was the first big account, US account, to blow this up. And of course, all the usual suspects, your Jack Posobics, your cat turds, all the right-wing MAGA influencers with millions of followers were spreading this, and it got tens of millions of views that these guys are supposedly using cocaine. Then, the French government finally puts out, the real video with a clear, more of a high-def video that shows that this was a tissue and a coffee stir.
Yeah.
But, that was 50 million views later.
Yeah.
And, it's disgusting how the American right, the Republican Party, is willing accomplices to spread Russian propaganda about our allies, who they perceive as our enemies.
Our former allies, you mean?
Our friends are Vladimir Putin and,
Mohammed
Saudi
bin
Arabia
Salman
and Qatar.
And former Al Qaeda people.
These are our enemies, so we need to lie about them. Yeah.
The world has changed unrecognizably in about 3 months, hasn't it? I mean, in terms of alliances, in terms of media and media control, in terms of Trump somehow has managed to move. Because I was looking at some polling yesterday, and, people really are still very supportive of Trump. And they really do think that what he's doing is great, and that Putin is the friend and not the foe, and everything all the intentional stuff that was in Project 2025, it's all coming to fruition. And I'm not one of these.
Their propaganda machine is very powerful.
They're very powerful. And I
and
really
they never stop.
A realist.
They're 24/7 relentless.
Yes.
The difference between, and I don't mean to keep beating up on like the Biden administration, because I don't really want to spend that much time doing that. But the difference between what they do every day from a PR communication standpoint and the Biden, it's like night and day. It's not even close.
No.
Their propaganda machine never stops promoting, never stops lying. It's a 24-hour a day, 7-day a week thing, and it's effective.
And it's supported by these networks. And there are more of these right-wing networks growing than ever before.
Sure.
And, you know, if you were to throw a hammer out of the window, Ron, it would probably land on a right-wing podcast.
Yeah, I mean, that's the other thing. You can't discount the fact that all their podcasters pick up on this stuff with millions of followers. Your Charlie Kirks, your Tim Pools, even your Joe Rogans these days, you know, who's gone pretty far right. And by the way, lost a lot of his original core audience who wasn't far right because they've had enough of his far right politics. But these, I mean, Dan Bongino's just been taken off the board. He had a huge, you know, podcasts show,
and they love.
But that's part of their power, and that's where they've had an advantage over Democrats that hopefully people like us are helping to turn around.
Even a line that Trump's peddling, like the border is now closed, which obviously doesn't make any sense to anyone with any critical thinking. You can't close borders. There are millions of people traveling in and out of the United States every day. But the border is now closed, has now bed in as a kind of psychologically, as a feeling that a lot of these people on the right have. They're like, well, the border is closed now, so, you know, they ain't coming in. So that's to feel a bit better about themselves and to give Trump kudos. And it's not based in any truth, but it plays well. The border is now closed. It's like, you know, Brexit, take back control. These things, they get traction, and they're like a high-speed train, which is not something you'll know anything about because, of course, this is America. Apologies. Let's talk about these refugees from South Africa, because this is a fascinating story. We've seen the clips going around. I made a video about it last night before last, of these so-called South African farmers. You know, the Afrikaners they are called, to get it right. And they are white. Trump is claiming that they've been suffering genocide, and that that they are being killed by the black South Africans. That is not based in truth. Of course, there has been some violence, but nothing like a reason to seek asylum in America. It's because they're white, it's because they have means, and it's because they are able to assimilate. I think one of Trump's henchmen actually said that out loud, you know, when he was asked, why are you choosing these people and welcoming them to the United States rather than others? And the answer, I think Afghanis was the reference, and he was like, well, these people are more likely to assimilate. I want to play this clip from CNN, a kind of a analysis of this very thing. Let's have a quick look.
Joining us now is New York Times columnist Nicholas Kristof. Nick, you say this whole situation upside down, the idea that there's a genocide of white farmers. I mean, why do you think the Trump administration is doing this?
Well, I mean, he's completely turned refugee policy upside down in ways that reflect racial discrimination. I mean, he's not, the Afrikaner farmers are not suffering from that. It is true that some have been murdered, but black farmers have been murdered at even higher rates. And, you know,
right, there's a huge crime rate in South Africa. Crime is a huge problem. But according to organizations there's been no forcible taking back of confiscation of land at this point.
Not at all. And, you know, it is true that there was legislation passed in January that theoretically creates an opportunity to confiscate some land without compensation. That has not been implemented. Nobody has had their land taken away. And, you know, these Afrikaners are among the most privileged people on the entire continent. They are they are assets, or the white South Africans have assets 20 times greater than those of black South Africans on average. And, you know, you just mentioned Sudan, the world's probably worst humanitarian crisis right now. In Sudan, I've seen a man who had his eyes gouged out as a reflection.
I won't play more of that because it gets quite graphic. But the point that he's making is that this makes a total mockery of the entire asylum process and Trump's kind of hard line on people who are here even legally, it exposes the fact, and Trump said it at the press conference, well, the fact that they're white is irrelevant to me. Well, you obviously have to reverse everything that he says. The fact that they are white is relevant to him. And that's the reason why they were literally welcomed to the United States with stars and stripes flags, Ron. It couldn't be more opposite to the way people like Rameza Ozturk have been treated, or Mahmoud Khalil, or any of these people who were disappeared off the streets, or Kilmar Abrego Garcia sent to a El Salvadorian gulag. The hypocrisy here is nuts.
I mean, our asylum policy right now is that the United States government is essentially going to ignore all asylum laws, all asylum policy, except for white South Africans who are not only going to be allowed in under a claim of asylum, but are going to be fast-tracked to citizenship. And, by the way, U.S. taxpayers are paying the bill to fly them here. We are paying to fly them here.
Yeah, that was a chartered flight.
And these are just the first batch. So, I mean, we can obviously spend hours talking about the complicated history of South Africa, but I mean, this is a country where it's 20% of the population for 400 years controlled all the wealth. They had first of all, it's not just a white-black thing. It's a multiracial. There are people from India, from all over the world that settled in South Africa. It's a multiracial, multi-ethnic society. But you had a small percentage that controlled, that could, nobody else could vote. Only white people could vote. Only white people had civil liberties until just a few decades ago. And so when the black population took power, when Nelson Mandela took power, they very well could have done what Elon Musk and others have claimed that is being done. They easily could have confiscated the industry, confiscated the farms. There could have easily been genocide had they chosen to go down that road, but they did not. And you know what? There would have been a lot of people around the world who would have justified that genocide in many ways because of the oppression that they had for so long. But it didn't happen. It's not happening. The amount of crime that's committed against them is lower than the amount of crime committed against the general population of South Africa. So to say that, and when the administration was asked, well, wait a minute, there are people, why are you sending Afghans back? If we send Afghans back, we're sending them back to certain death or prison. These are the people who we allowed in as Afghan refugees, and we've just terminated their refugee status.
Yeah.
And we may begin deportation soon. They were the people who worked for the United States government and worked for the United States military. We would be sending them back to certain death. So to say that these rich, mostly rich, white privileged South Africans are more deserving of asylum, political asylum in the United States than the Afghans is absolutely insane. And that's what Christoph's saying turns our policy upside down. Yeah. And what was the response when the administration was confronted about this? They said, these white South Africans are more easily assimilated into American society than Afghans. What does that mean?
I mean, there's nothing more to say. I mean, everybody knows Trump is a racist. Everybody knows the people that he has brought into his administration.
And deported any Ukrainians either.
Right.
We got a lot of Ukrainian immigrants in the last few years.
Well, that's all to come. We have to finish. We only have about 2 or 3 minutes left. So I want to finish with RFK Jr. dunking himself and his family into some creek that he claims looked clean, but is in fact infested with goodness knows what. And he is the Director of Health and Human Services. Let's take a look.
Jesse, would you swim in a sewage-filled creek?
That creek looks clean. It doesn't look like it's filled with sewage. And I have seen Pete
It's pretty
Hegseth
brown, actually.
swim miles and miles in a Speedo in the Hudson River, which you can't even see through. This you can see right through. I think it's fine.
Greg?
Yeah, well, Pete Hegseth said he'd never washed his hands because he's never seen germs. just wrap us up with this, because this is just, it's remarkable, it's embarrassing, it's fascinating, and it's frustrating.
He brought his grandkids. So, I mean, this is, I've documented during the campaign all of his past behaviors, whether it's with the bear in the trunk and the brain worms and all of the heroin addiction, the sex addiction, his wife's suicide. This guy literally has mountains of stuff in his background. Not just the heroin addiction, but his family documented that it wasn't just him using. He wanted everyone in his orbit to use. He pushed his drugs on family members, on friends. In fact, one of his family members, I believe, died of a heroin addiction, and RFK Jr. was the one who got him addicted to heroin. This is a despicable human being. And to have this man, who's an environmental lawyer, who, if his name was not RFK Jr., if this guy had been born Joe Smith, he would be running a hot dog stand based on just talent, intellect, and ability. Absolutely the only reason why he's in charge of Health and Human Services and was able to cobble together this campaign where he had 3 to 4% of the voters is because of his name, because of his family name. That's it. And he embraced he's a famous name who embraced quackery and carved out this chunk of voters who were able to decide the election one way or the other. This small sliver of voters that supported him. Trump honed in on it, made a deal with him, and now this fool is in charge of public health. So the question is, did he know that this was a toxic creek that the National Park Service said no one is allowed to swim in this creek?
Of course he did. He's making a point.
It's filled with chemicals, E. coli, and sewage and everything else. Did he know that? And because that is very much his character, which is all the experts, all the scientists, they all say you can't do this, but I know more than them, and I'm doing it. That's why in charge of public health in America.
That's why he and Trump get on so well, is because they both completely cut from the same cloth. He is as mad as a box of frogs, and he is going to, in the same way that, by proxy, Trump caused the death of over 500,000 Americans by not dealing with COVID quick enough and properly. I'm sure that we're going to see similar numbers, if not worse, as a result of RFK Jr.'s tenure, in the Department of Health. It's a tragedy. And I can't help thinking that they just want people to die. They want the poor to die, and they want the rich to survive. And it's Lord of the Flies, It's this, William Golding couldn't have written this any better. This is the world that we are living in now. Okay, we have to finish. I'm sorry it's solemn, but it's our reality, and it's one that we will continue to expose and discuss and support you through.
Make E. coli great again. Right?
Make E. coli great again. I knew you'd have a good gag for the end of this show. Have you got another one? Because I feel like there's one on the tip of your tongue.
No. I mean, that one just popped into my head.
Okay,
I mean,
very good.
His testimony in front of Congress, I think it was this morning, was about the measles outbreak and vaccines. Was just incredible. He even made the statement in testifying in front of Congress today. He said, "Nobody should take medical advice from me." That's what he said under oath. It's like, wait, you're in charge of Health and Human Services.
Yeah. Wait, look who's in charge of the military. So, good luck.
I agree with him.
Good luck with that.
But he shouldn't be in charge of anything.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll just do our best through this period. That's all we can do, is our best. If you want to download the audio podcast, it drops later tonight. If you want to rewind, watch again, and share, we would love you to do that. Comment down below, as you always do. And we'll come back next Wednesday with another Uncovered. Thank you, Ron.
See you next week.